How's it going, everyone? Happy Monday. Hope you're all, excuse me, doing well. All right. I planned on today being an anatomy day. It kind of still will be to some extent, but I didn't have time to get the anatomy files ready. So we are working on a male figure today. It's quite a bit of it. So I think we'll certainly get a chance to discuss a few things. Yeah, so for the two middle poses, for those of you drawing along, you have both full figure and a close-up of the upper torso. I'm going to be focusing on those close-ups. Once again, I want to kind of get into the nitty-gritty with the anatomy. So yeah, that's my plan. But the full figure is there for those of you who would rather full figure. Okay. Microphone has static issues. Oh, good Lord. Let me know if that helps. Probably doesn't. Hold on. Maybe that helps. All right. We'll have to play it by ear. The microphone static is audible only when you talk through. Specific. It helped. Did that help? Let me know. Let me know, and we'll try and deal with it. But it's gone. Okay. Fingers crossed it stays that way. Okay. For the first pose, it's a full figure. I think it requires us to draw the full figure just because, just the nature of the pose, really. So we'll do that. We'll do this first one as a warm-up. I'm looking at about a 15-minute-ish pose, kind of my goal, because I really want to spend some time on poses 2 and 3. And then we have poses 4 and 5, and we'll just see where we're at with the clock. And we'll decide at that point how much time we'll spend on them. Okay. Let's draw. I'll set the timer. There we go. Good. Glad those issues, the audio is resolved. Okay. Let's have a look then. Shoulders. Find. This is a very, very gestural pose. So I think it'd be nice to try and find this rhythm that is going on. Love the way this leg sweeps this way. Actually, probably the knee is probably about here. This leg going back in space this way. You can see that foot's way back there. Tibia coming down this way. And look at that. Looks like we might just get the full figure on the page for a change. Okay. There we go. Just. I'll lurk for a bit, but I'll still keep chat at gunpoint. Good man. Thanks, Lulu. Center. Now, obviously, our model, our subject, is wearing trunks, we'll call them, which is unfortunate. For obvious reasons, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, this is a new model pack from Grafit, and I liked his anatomy enough, and we don't get a lot of great male models, you know. We have an abundance of female models, but when a good male model comes along, you know, if we've got something like him wearing trunks, then that is just something that we're gonna have to make peace with, you know. And I think it's worth it in this case. It's also, he's an interesting subject because he's clearly very athletic. For that there is no doubt. but he's got just a little bit of belly fat on him. And it actually makes for some very interesting design language around the midsection. I hope he wouldn't take offense at me saying that. It does seem to be the case. Wrist is about here. And it's about there. He's obviously holding this stick too, so we'll be mindful of that as we go through this process. Not sure how to see the reference simultaneously. Do we use another monitor? This is my first time. Another monitor or split the screen. Some people usually watch the stream on their phone or their tablet, and look at the reference on a computer screen. Or if, you know, some people have multiple displays. That's the ideal way. But yeah. Unfortunately, there's no other way kind of around that particular issue. Geoff, is it? Anyway, I haven't seen your name in the chat before, Geoff or Geoff, so welcome. Yeah, to people that work in, you know, certain industries do tend to have multiple monitors. And it is a lovely thing to have the extra real estate. I have 3 different displays here, and I couldn't, honestly, I could not imagine going back to only having a single display. Like 3 might be excessive, but you know what? I use all 3. Now I said 15 minutes for this, and I would like to try and stick to that, so I need to speed up here just a little bit. So this pectoral is actually sitting about here. This is actually, for those of you who have the reference in front of you, his right arm is such a beautiful study for the bicep that when we come to work on bicep in isolation, you could very well end up seeing this pose again, because there's some shape language to that bicep which is just really bang on, so to speak. Finding that sternocleidomastoid, and once again look at the way that it extends from it kind of extends that journey of the center line, this sternocleidomastoid going up and then sitting behind the ear. A far more important idea for me than finding, let's say for example, how the trapezius connects the head to the neck or to the torso, if that makes sense. My kitchen table won't hold 3 monitors, well that's fair. Richard Smidman, do you play any video games? Daily Doodle, I'll tell you, when my kids were growing up, when they were little, there's a couple of video games even this Christmas that came out again. Which is, and it's games from their childhood. Crash Bandicoot, and which we love as a family, just collectively, and we'll play that one over and over again. Just the soundtrack from it too, it reminds us of the kids' childhood immediately when we hear it. So Crash Bandicoot, when PS like 1 or 2 came out, there was a game like back from like 20 odd years ago now called Wipeout. We played I played quite a bit of Wipeout back in the day. And we still have a copy of that. It hasn't come out in a while, but that's about the extent of it. No, you know, in fact, I guess you'd consider this a game to some degree. One I really enjoyed playing on the tablet was Monument Valley. It's more like a puzzle game, that though. And I noticed on Netflix they had Monument Valley 3, so I was having a look at that last night, and going through a few of the puzzles on it, which is I love the design language and the style of Monument Valley. In case anyone hasn't seen it, it has a super simple design, but Monument Valley is it's gorgeous. It's an absolutely gorgeous game, and really nicely put together. So I enjoy that. Kids love the Simpsons movie or games, but no. But as far as like modern gaming, I play chess. That's a game. Kind of a computer game. Play online. Does that count? Don't know. Probably not really. I just don't have time. I can certainly appreciate the aesthetics and the design that goes into games. I'm certainly not like, you know, against gaming at all. And look, I think there's some gorgeous games that have been made, but like, that stuff is so addictive. It's so time consuming. So if I got into gaming, it's like there's other things in my life I would have to kind of do less of, and I'm not prepared to make that sacrifice, you know? So we're at the 10-minute mark. Hey, Mila. Those are some serious OG games. Yeah, you know, the other one that I played like when it first came out was Battle Arena Toshiden. Remember that one? Like the first version of it? Like, what was that, PS1? Or was that PS2? I don't even recall, but we had a friend back in the time, and this would have been what, like early mid 90s? Probably around 95? 94, 95, Battle Arena Toshiden. We played a good bit of that at the time. Oh, it's a bit of fun. But I played so much Wipeout that I would close my eyes at night going to bed and I would just see Wipeout. I knew that was probably a problem. Wait, how old are you? My guess would be 45. Me, Daddy Doodle, I am 52. Born in 72. So I'm going to be 53 in April. Yes, 53. Never thought that that would be something I would say, but there you go. So yeah, I'm one of the pre-internet people. I remember when, you know, wasn't a thing. I remember when to get picked up from the train station, you would go to a call box and you would reverse the charges, and you would let the operator basically send a call to your parents. So the idea being that they would accept the charges, but the parents know that when the call comes through to accept the charges, that it's time to pick you up from the train, so they would deny the accept the charges and come to the train station and get you. All those kind of fun and games. Yep, I'm old enough to remember all of it. All right, we're at, I think this drawing, although obviously can always go further, it's probably, at least for what I want to achieve and the time that we have for it, I think it's pretty much as where it's going to be. So I think I'm going to stop there. Yeah. I think that'll do. Look at me, for once, coming in under the time specified by 7 seconds. So, could you show the reference? Here's the thing, L rocks. If you remember, you can absolutely see the reference. I can't show it. I get kicked off YouTube if I show the reference. Chocolate Mike, I'm a pre-internet person too. Feels like a different world. Yes, it does. Ah, Margie's daughter is my age. There you go. All right, in the 72 gang. Thomas, you have no electricity or water. Yikes, man. Sorry to hear that. You must have got hit by that storm, huh? Which hit Northern Ireland. It was pretty horrendous. Where are you at, Thomas? You down in Dublin? Probably pretty bad down there too, I'm guessing. Yeah, Lulu, you're old enough to remember the old phones with the rotating the rotating dial, and you hated friends that had zeros in their phone in their number because you'd have to go like that and then wait as it came back. Yeah, hilarious. Shashank Rao asks, is tracing references a good way to add anatomy knowledge? Any tips for using tracing as part of learning? Shashank, my advice to you would be to not trace. When you're tracing, there is the fear that you get into blindly copying without thinking. Now, you might retort and say, well, no, I would be very conscious while tracing. I'm sure you would, but you'll be even more conscious if you're having to actually build up the form through eye to reference kind of coordination, we'll call it. I would strongly urge you not to get into the habit of tracing anything. It'll feel like, oh, look at the progress I'm making. You're not. You're really not. It's a false sense of security that you will have developed, and I would strongly advise that you resist the temptation of tracing. Okay, my friend. Based in Cavan. Everyone in Cavan is pretty much without power and water. Thomas, I'm really sorry to hear that, but I'm glad that you're able to at least watch the stream, I'm guessing on your phone, which would suggest that the cell towers do have power, which is odd, isn't it? But yeah, that sucks, man. Good luck with it, really. Try and stay warm. Simpler times, but information at your fingertips is priceless. We could never do this. Christopher, I could not agree more. You know, I'm going to start the next pose. As I said, folks, for those of you drawing along, for the next pose, you have two images. You have a close-up on the back, and then you have the full figure. I'm choosing to draw just focusing in on the back itself and the arms. But for those of you who want to draw the full figure, you have that option. Shashank says, gotcha. I was concerned about the same thing. Yeah, really. Shashank, do yourself a favor, man. Just avoid it. Slar says, I got more progress doing lots and lots of gesture session and focusing on specific parts of anatomy each time. That's certainly one way. There's nothing wrong with that. Doing anatomy studies, just taking a body part and just doing a master copy, we will call it. You see, let's make a distinction. I think there's value in doing master copies, right? Where you might have the reference on a screen or in front of you or print out, whatever it might be. And doing a master copy. But even with that, I would strongly encourage you not to just get into this mindset of blindly copying in the academic way of like creating a grid system and saying, oh, well, the elbow sits in D6 and the fingertips up in A2 and building up that way, because that's just blind copying as well, right? Better for it to be a little bit not a perfect copy, but for you to build up thinking, okay, what's the structure that's going on here? Well, I know that underneath that muscle, there's the arm muscle, or the bone of the muscle, the humerus, for example, right? Okay, I'm going to draw roughly where I think that bone is and how would those muscles attach. That's the way to do an anatomy study. Not just to go, oh, okay, that part's there, I'll copy that there, and because you're not thinking analytically, right? This is my feeling. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, so when I was, I used to do the following. Sorry, I'll get to my story in a second. I trace, then I redraw what I traced. Then I take away everything, reference, trace, redraw. And I redraw from memory. Then I redraw and fix my mistakes from the blind draw. I would agree with everything with what you're saying, Lulu, only I would take away the trace part to begin with. I just think it's an unnecessary step. Not only unnecessary, I genuinely feel it can slow down development. This is my feeling, but mileage may vary, to each their own. Okay, let's draw. Let me reset the clock. Jaeger, hey Jaeger, I have an ongoing problem with the scapula shape. All right, well, we got this pose. Let me talk through my progress, because the scapula is certainly a much simpler form than, say, something like the pelvis, right? But I think that, at least for me, what matters with the scapula is more its general shape, because we're laying so much muscle over the top of the scapula that the precise shape of the scapula is not important as far as I'm concerned, as is the position of the scapula. And I think we can represent the scapula in a rather simple way, like a triangle, essentially. Because between the muscle that's laid on top and having its position and understanding its position and understanding that the head of the humerus is under that certain part of the scapula, I think will get you more mileage. In saying that, you know, it could be one of those things that you're going to decide to pull out an anatomy book for and do some studies of. and I think that you know, obviously nothing wrong with that too. It's like when I draw the sacrum down here, for example, I'm indicating it like a triangle, but in actual fact, you know, to some degree or another, it's really not triangle shaped at all. But if you had to squint and look at it from 30 yards away, maybe you'd just be making out a triangle. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of about taking it down to its absolute simplest form. All right, let's find the rib cage. Rib cage is going to be sitting roughly about here. Another thing that I'm drawing a very simplified shape for. We know that up here we're talking about the occipital ridge, right? Trapezius coming down this way and this way. Okay, so this is where I would start thinking about position of scapula, and really I would be thinking, you can kind of see because of the muscle and that, you can kind of get a general hint that the scapula, the ridge of the scapula is going up that way. The scapula is sitting in here, and then the head of the humerus is going to be sitting underneath that. This arm is going up in this direction, coming over here. This one, at least it's a very basic idea, right? This one is more out this way, and is sitting about here. I'm probably not going to describe the scapula itself in any more detail than that. And I find it'll be enough. But once again, it could be a very enjoyable thing to do a proper anatomy study of, you know, and just from a good anatomy book or from the app, and just kind of go through the process. We can see coming right, the trapezius comes down this way and then attaches along the ridge of the scapula, which we're just very loosely indicating here. And we can see that V of that trapezius coming down this way. We can actually see it, which we only really see on very lean models. Latissimus is going to be coming up this way. Something like that, right? Thanks for the info, says Sly. You're very welcome. Tina, I don't know what it says. I don't know what happened. My first drawing looks like a twisted up Gumby. It happens. It happens. Isn't scapula a triangle? Yeah, there you go. I think in its simplest idea. Slar asks, can I ask what you think of the Bug drawing course? I actually have the book there. Hold on. Some of you might be interested to see this. Hold on a second. So this is a book. I don't even know when this was first printed. It's been a while ago, we'll put it that way. And it's it's the quintessential academic method, right? All of these, copying these plates is the idea, and you very much go in and you measure in the way that is completely the opposite to the way that we measure doing the kind of work that we do. And it's one plate after the next, and a lot of very meticulous attention goes into doing these studies, and the idea being that you could spend a couple of days or a couple of weeks on each one of these, right? This is kind of the process. This is the quintessential, what we'll call academic system. I just simply don't have the patience for this type of drawing. It's not to say that there isn't value in it, but here's the thing. In that system, they do a lot of this measurement that we talked about, grid system type measurement, right? And my feeling is that it's very, very different from my approach, which is trying to think from the inside out and trying to think sculpturally and volumetrically about what it is that I'm drawing, rather than trying to copy a series of ideas. Does that make sense? Here's the thing, and I'll get flack for this, but I consider that system to be closer to craft than I do art, because I don't think it helps develop. There's this whole series of skills which I don't think it helps develop. I think you get very, very good at rendering in that system, extremely good at rendering. I find it all a bit boring. So there you go. That's my feeling. So there you go. I really like doing these plates, to be honest. Well, Slug, knock yourself out, man. I think, yeah, there's a place for it. There's a place for all of it. It doesn't scratch the itch for me as drawing. I think it's a completely different skill set to what it is that we're trying to do here. I really do. And I don't think it's here's the other thing, depending on what it is that you want to do, but that is certainly not the way that the Renaissance guys drew. 100% no, in my opinion. They drew far more like this system. You know, Michelangelo and the likes, right? They were drawing far more in the spirit of this than that. That came later, right? That all came 150 years after they were all gone. So that would be my feeling. Yeah, look, I get it, Slow. I get that you're look. There's no right or wrong, right? Some people dig that stuff. Notice in all of those plates, there's never once a discussion about what the anatomy is that you're actually drawing, right? There's never once a discussion of how the anatomy connects to the skeleton, the muscle connects to the skeleton. The mechanics of what's happening are never discussed. In all of that book, there is not one single anatomical note about what it is that you're drawing. Just copy, copy, copy. Blindly copy to your heart's content. That's not the way. How do you signal the different rotation of the pelvis and the thorax? I'm freaking blanking on the thorax. Hold on. Okay, well, no wonder I'm having the area of the body between the neck and the abdomen. So okay, sorry. Yes, you mean the upper torso. Sorry, I never use the term thorax. Never use it. The center line The center line will give you the difference on where the rotation, where the thorax or the upper torso sits in relationship to the lower torso. What are you using to tilt your canvas? I was thinking of buying an easel. Do not buy an easel. All you need, Emmanuel, is a board sitting on your table and on your lap. The board is kind of like resting on your lap and against the edge of the table, and then you move far enough back or forward to get just the right angle that works for you. Okay? Don't be buying easels. You certainly don't want to be drawing with your arm up like this, which is what an easel will make you do. Please, 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 please don't do that. It's the worst way. Okay, let me continue drawing here. So now I want to think about my deltoid sitting in here, coming off that ridge of the scapula. So the acromion process is going to be sitting right here, right? Ridge of the scapula is sitting here, the deltoid coming off that way. See, that's what I love about this system, is we're engaged. We're thinking about the anatomy that we're drawing. Right? Thinking about these relationships, how these things connect. Even though I can't see it, knowing that the bicep is starting its journey up here behind this deltoid, coming up this way and then moving down this way, right? Understanding that makes all the difference. Actually, this is probably more about here, so we'll shift that. Daily Doodle. Which is fine. When did you start drawing? Well, you know, like most children, I drew as a child. I did grow up I spent most of my childhood years living in Spain. I actually grew up living halfway up a mountain, in Spain, with no television and no real entertainment. So I spent a lot of my time drawing or doing crafts or trying to basically entertain myself. So there's a chance I drew a little bit more than maybe other kids my age that had access to that stuff, potentially. But I really started drawing, I would say, when I started drawing to work in animation. And I started working in animation when I was 15. And that's when I kind of started drawing professionally. So that's when I would say I started really drawing. Do humans have a thorax? Apparently so. Do you have enough stability that way, Emmanuel asks? Yeah, 100% you do. For the kind of drawing we're doing, you do, Emmanuel. Or you can make what I've got here. I literally, I'll just show you real quick. Why not? I made this from actually old drawing boards, of all things. But you see, I cobbled this together. See this? But the reason I did that was primarily because I need a consistent angle for the camera, right? But yeah, because I had I still have quite a few of these MDF drawing boards lying around, so I just kind of cut them up and glued that thing together in a morning, and it was done. So you could do something like that if you're handy. Go off the page there. Did not allow quite enough room up there, which was stupid of me. Anyway, the back I wanted to focus on, so I'm going to just do that. C7 and T1, we can see them sitting in here, right? It's useful. Christopher Clark says, I like to know why I'm drawing something the way that I am, such as the scaffolding of the body, if you like. So that you have a deeper understanding of what it is that you're doing, so that it can build up a knowledge and a vocabulary, so that you can problem solve when you're drawing something that you might not fully understand, right? You want to be able to build vocabulary, and it will help you problem solve. So that's why, and we're trying at least to think more like sculptors drawing this way. That's the idea, at least. I think I need to move this head over this way a little bit. Yeah, probably about there. Do you do anything to prevent finished drawings from yellowing from the sun? Yeah, keeping them out of the sun, Camille. We'll do it. Keep them out of the sun, and if you really want to keep something preserved, frame it behind UV glass. That will help. Okay, Giaf says, can't help using thorax, I'm a surgeon. I mean, in three-dimensional rendering, can you indicate? You're using another word I have not heard before, so I'm going to copy and paste it. So, how do you, acceptable? Okay, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. But I am going to look it up. Also called the. Yeah, you see, okay. No, you see, here's the thing. I think that Giaf, I don't know how many of my sessions you've been to. I'm not concerned there, at least for my mind, I'm not concerned about the minutiae of something like the pelvis. I'm concerned about surface anatomy, right? And the parts of the anatomy that come to the surface that give me landmarks. So what is really important to me, other than understanding a general shape, right, and generally how the femur, for example, connects to the pelvis, large ideas. What really matters to me about the pelvis, for example, is the asis, the iliac crest, and the sacrum, because they're all things I can see on the surface, and they're all things I can landmark, right? So something like, so I hope hopefully that answers your question, but the acetabulum, we're simply not seeing it, right? Now we want to know where the femur connects to the pelvis, roughly, right? There's some reasons for that, obviously, but I don't need to know about, at least for me, I don't need to concern myself with all of those smaller details for the pelvis. Now that's not to say that it shouldn't necessarily be a line of discussion or inquiry, but of all the things that we need as artists to understand about the body, in my opinion, that goes so far down the list that it's just, you know, what are we trying to, what do we want to achieve, right? I would much rather that time be spent on understanding something like design language than understanding of the subtlety of what happens behind the aces, for example. Let's concern ourselves with surface anatomy, or parts of the skeleton, which is surface anatomy, that comes to the surface, right? Does that make sense? Now, with the greatest respect, I've seen a lot of surgeons or people that doctors understand anatomy far better than most artists that still can't draw the human form, right? So having that understanding does not necessarily equal, well, you know, doctors are all going to be great at doing figurative art. Absolutely not. Might be terrible at making choices. Interestingly enough, there's an artist out in Las Vegas who spends a lot, an anatomy artist, figurative artist, that spends an awful lot of his time out in Las Vegas teaching plastic surgeons aesthetics. Because you could be a fantastic plastic surgeon and have a terrible eye for what looks good. Consequently, why we see a lot of bad plastic surgery out there, right? So one does not necessarily equal the other. Does that make sense? That would be my feeling on it. You can have all the knowledge in the world. If you can't make good aesthetic choices, it just doesn't matter. Strange Brew. Hey Richard, I want to ask you, what brand and size of newsprint do you use? Started using Cas Art A2 pads. Well, Strange Brew, I am in the UK. I don't know if Cas Art are here. Maybe there is a British company, I'm not sure. Anyway, I use a really cheap brand of newsprint, which I find to be fantastic. From a school art supply store, and they have a website here in the UK. So if you're UK based, I'm happy to send you a link. It won't be much use to you if you're in the States. I would say, as far as those pads go, just make sure that you are actually working with smooth newsprint. In my opinion, I know that there are some people that like the rough newsprint, but in my opinion, the smooth newsprint is really a key factor. I always assumed doctors would be able to draw anatomical masterpieces. Yeah, you would think, right? But no, it's not. It's certainly not the case in my experience. It's about choices. It's not just about knowledge. It's about choices and the choices that you're going to make. And nothing about your training as a doctor is going to equip you for that. I think this elbow actually needs to be lower. Be about here. I hope I don't sound like I'm doctor bashing. It's not my intention. I just want to dispel a myth or a perception that might be, not necessarily correct. So we have the Chromium process. Once again, we can get a sense for it sitting here on this side, right? Super useful for us to know where that is, because that's going to tell us where that ridge of the scapula is there, and it's also going to tell us where the head of the humerus is sitting under here, coming down this way, down to the elbow, right? I wouldn't be doing this if I was good at it already. No, fair dues. Fair enough. I hope all that I've said, Jeff, makes sense. Right? I hope you can take it in the spirit that I mean it. It certainly means absolutely no disrespect at all. Okay? I want to be clear about that. But I hope you can understand the context in which I'm discussing these ideas. Because I have tremendous respect for all that our medical people do. So, well, I guess I should probably draw a little bit of this hand. Just indicate it. Mess. I'll come back to that. Yeah, I'm UK based. Okay, not sure if CASART is UK only. I've got kind of a local in London. Here, let me I put a link up. I'm trying to think where I put it. I think it's on Discord. Let me grab the link and I'll put it in the chat. And then you will have a link to the UK company that I use. Just to my American friends, please save yourselves the trouble of trying to order from it, because it's probably more expensive than would make sense. Plus they probably don't even ship to the UK. I put it in the back on the stream. Here we go. Let's see. All right, I'll put it in the chat. Here you go. Hopefully that link works. Yeah, all right, good. That's the newsprint I use. So there you go. Hey Cookie, how you doing? I wonder if doctors only need to know the names and functionality, or do they need to learn how the anatomy looks like? I would imagine they need to obviously know how it looks, and they know it on a far deeper level than we artists do. You see, let's be kind of practical. What do we need to know as artists? We need to understand surface anatomy. Right? Like really. And maybe a little bit of subsurface anatomy if you want to understand the mechanics of how certain things work. Right? It's useful. For example, a little bit of subsurface anatomy that's useful to know is generally how the femur attaches to the pelvis and where it attaches relative to the large idea of thinking of the pelvis as a box. Understanding where the femur attaches is subsurface anatomy that's useful to us. Because we also get hints of that in this, right? You know when we do this butterfly shape down here for the gluteus medius and maximus, right? Sitting in this region here. And people go, well, what's sitting right here? That is essentially, this region right here is where the femur attaches, right? Comes down this way, great trochanter comes down to about here, and that's why the wideness of the hips is here, right? Because the great trochanter is pushing out this way. So that's why when we're drawing this butterfly motif that sits in here, that indent right there is essentially where that attachment point happens, where the pelvis and the femur meet, so to speak, right? That's subsurface anatomy that, as figurative artists, is a useful thing for us to understand, because look at the way it can help provide structure, right? Simplifying the sacrum, understanding that the sacral dimples are here and here, and simplifying the sacrum down to this triangle is useful. Is that what the sacrum looks like? As I said earlier, no. But in its most simple form, that tells us enough about the landmarks of the sacrum for us to understand, okay, the gluteus comes to the base of the sacrum here, and if you go up, and what else does it tell us where these sacral dimples is essentially where the iliac crest has come across around the form from the front and comes down and meets up with the sacrum, right? So with that logic, it dictates that the oblique is sitting on top of that, the oblique is sitting and meeting up with the iliac crest, and so on and so forth, right? So there's a logic to why we're doing what we're doing. But, you know, like, and for example, knowing where C7 and T1 is right here and here, there's a logic to understanding that, because A, it tells us where the neck attaches to the rib cage, but it also sorry, what was my point? It also shows us where this triangle is here, where the trapezius thins out in this region here, where it meets up with the scapula, etc., right? So look at the way I'm getting all of this, knowing that the trapezius comes down this way, etc. Look at the way I get all of this kind of internal diagrammatical knowledge, or able to break things up by understanding some of these core ideas. Right? Makes sense? I hope so. I'm going to throw in some core shadows. Actually, before I do, let me just not be completely lazy with this hand. Wait, see the thumb sitting there. It's kind of crazy. Okay. Do I hear Debussy in the background? Yeah, you did hear Debussy in the background. If you draw portraits, I would imagine you benefit from knowing facial muscles. Yeah, you would, absolutely, but certainly there's some obviously things to know there. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to just throw in, going to once again use light and tone to help describe a little bit of anatomical form, because we're kind of at that point. Hey, Aris, welcome. So, you can really see from this trapezius, like this core shadow coming down. As I've said before, you don't often have models that are so lean that the V of the trapezius is quite so prominent. It's very, very useful. Notice the way that the oblique also is acting as kind of like a dividing line here, where our tone is sitting. We're going to resist the temptation of, let's just put it this way, we're going to simplify. We're not going to, there's a lot of bumps and turns that if we try and describe all of them, the drawing has a tendency to become pebbles on a beach and can really just lose its way. Down here where he is obviously got his shorts on, we can't see it, but I'm going to kind of suggest how once again, now working from kind of like, you know, the vocabulary that as I understand it, because I don't have the reference in front of me, so I'm shifting to, you could say, drawing from your imagination right now. Where the brachioradialis fits their overlapping form, elbow sitting in here. And once again, just really using light and tone to describe a lot of this stuff. Where are we at? 40 minutes. Yikes. It's way too long. Okay, I guess I've done a lot of talking during this drawing. We're probably not more than a few minutes away from being done, so there is that. Yeah, it's a complex one. All right, time to fill in some of this tone. Thank you, Iris. Appreciate it. Glad to hear it. So yeah, just blocking in. What is blocking? And then we'll look and see if there's anything that we want to kind of, you know, push. But I feel like I've spent long enough on this drawing, and it's probably one for the fire pit, so I'm reluctant to spend much longer on it. We'll go a few more minutes. I'm not crazy about it. See, this is what happens when I talk too much. Yeah. Bit lame. Oh, Mila, you're too kind. Thank you so much. Very kind of you. Mila, you're awesome. Christopher Clark says, I find it a lot to take in, so I'm concentrating on different aspects each time. You know, that is a very good approach, because it is a lot to take in. And I think that we need to, you know, when we're learning this stuff, like, it's one of the other reasons I think that it's imperative to try and keep our learning of anatomy to focus on the things that are most important initially, and the things that we get the most mileage from, right? Because even the simplified version of anatomy that we do here, it's still an awful lot of anatomy, right? Especially, like, you know, when you think about it, the amount of people, and myself included, that come to figurative art and had no idea that they'd actually be having to study anatomy raw. And I think it can be a bit alarming for people, and it can be very intimidating. That's why I'm such a believer in learning landmarks and in the beginning, over learning, for example, the 8 muscles of the forearm, right? You get far more mileage from understanding the brachioradialis attaching to the humerus and coming down, attaching to the radial bone down here. those larger ideas, you'll get far more mileage out of those than knowing the chromium process, right? We've talked about them before. Like I feel like we should come up with a list of, the sacred landmarks that you must learn, because you'll get so much more initially. You'll get so much more progress from understanding those than you will all the little muscles, for example. That's not to say that we completely ignore large muscle groups, obviously, but there needs to be kind of a shopping list of things that we approach and the order in which we approach them, in my opinion, rather than just shoving an anatomy book at someone and saying, oh yeah, go away and learn this. Well, that's just a terrifying prospect for most people, understandably, right? All right. Hey Chris, hope you're well. Yeah, I'm in turd polishing mode here, so I'm going to move on from this drawing. Lulu says scapula, clavicle, acromion process, acis, off the top of my head. Perfect. Manubrium, add that one. Xiphoid process, or the arch of the rib cage, the top of the arch of the rib cage. Xiphoid process, another one, very, very useful. The navel, very useful. But you've got it, Lulu. You've got it. You've been to a few of these, haven't you? Are you referring of bone landmarks or muscles? Primarily bone landmarks, where obviously what we're really, well, obviously the acis is not a joint, but a lot of these are kind of where the skeleton comes to the surface of the form, right? And those typically tend to be joints, right? Ankles, wrists, knees, etc., right? That's where the skeleton reveals itself. That's kind of really, there's very important things to understand with those, because like, we've talked about before the acis at the front of the body. Just very, very quickly, if we think of it in its simplest terms, right? Let's say we've got lower torso sitting here, right? Upper torso is probably going to be about here, give or take, right? So just with some of these landmarks from that we can see, okay. So, manubrium. Oh, manubrium sitting right here, pit of the neck. Hugely important landmark. Why? Because the clavicle attaches. Head of the humerus comes out to here. Okay? Coming down, xiphoid process. Coming off the sternum, which is coming down here. Hugely important because we can understand then where the arch of the rib cage is. Coming down halfway between the bottom of the rib cage and the top of the pelvis, we'll find the navel. Excellent. Okay, that helps. The acis sitting here and here. What are the acis? Well, that's where the iliac crest has come from behind the form and comes to a point there. Same obviously on this side. Then we have the inguinal ligament coming down this way to the pubic bone. From that, the oblique is going to be sitting on top of the acis. Okay, look, our body starts to take form now, right? But why are the acis so important? This is where the belt line is, right? We've got several muscles that attach here, okay? Got rectus femoris, which is, well, actually, hold on, let me just get in a a dummy leg there. Okay, we got rectus femoris, comes down the form, sits here, attaches up down at the knee. Awesome. We got sartorius, which also attaches at the asis, comes down this way, attaches at the side of the leg. It gives us that subdivision. It gives us that little kind of area, right, of the inside of the thigh. That's really from the sartorius coming down and subdividing. Fantastic. What else do we have coming from the asis? Well, asis adjacent is the tensor fasciae latae, which attaches from the asis up this way, up the iliac crest, comes down this way, does something like that, right? Then comes down and meets up with the iliotibial tract and goes down the side of the leg, attaches on this side. Then from here we have gluteus medius that we'll be able to see peeking out in this region in here. And then obviously behind that. What else attaches at the asis? Well, not whether you could make an argument for attach, but it's where the oblique comes down, right? We've got the oblique kind of sitting in here. And that helps give us at least a rough shape for the abdominal wall, right? So understanding this one little thing, the asis, right? We've got 1, 2, sartorius, rectus femoris, sartorius, tensor fasciae latae, and the oblique, all kind of using the asis as a meeting point. So what a wonderful thing. And look at the way that the asis acts as kind of like the major transitional point and transitional form between the upper and the lower torso. So understanding this one little thing, one little bump of the iliac crest, the asis, tells us so much. Look how much mileage we got from understanding this one concept. Amazing. That to me is worth its weight in gold. That is why the asis is so important. So I'd much rather you spend all your energy as a beginner locating, finding the asis and understanding why it's important than understanding that their quadricep is made up of 4 muscles, of which we can see 3. And okay, fine. There's a place for that too, but that comes later. Okay? Christopher Clark says, I think I'm good at drawing landscape architecture and such, but I find figure drawing a completely different ballgame. Understandable. I would find drawing architecture a completely different ballgame, right? It's, yeah, makes sense. Okay, let's move on to the next pose. Yeah, this is another one. You know, so we are at 6:20. We've got 40 minutes, give or take, left. Thanks, Lulu, for the reference there. If you think that would be useful as a separate standalone video, it probably would be. There's probably a lot of things I've done in streams that would be useful as standalones, but I'm inherently lazy. You're very welcome, Petra. I was initially going to focus on a close-up study for this next one. And I'm just debating whether I still want to do that given the amount of time we spent on that last pose. So just bear with me 1 second, folks. Because I wouldn't mind drawing these next 3, and we could theoretically... Okay. We may end up losing the last pose, for example. Let's see. I might just end up drawing a full figure for this next one. Because I feel like I've burnt out on that last one. Alright. Let me just clean my hand here and we'll continue. And by extension, that feeling I have about the asis and the importance of it, I think applies to the acromion process. I think it applies to the sacrum. I think it, to some degree, applies to the manubrium too, right? And the list that Lulu put up there of the different landmarks. You can see how understanding the relationship between 4 or 5 of these different landmarks could really set you in a good place for then understanding the anatomy that attaches to it, and then you can continue your journey. But it gives you a starting point rather than just looking at the entire body and the network of muscles and going, where the hell do I start? Well, now we have a plan. And that's, a plan is a good thing, generally speaking. There are times you don't want to plan, but mostly you want to plan. Funny Lulu, yeah. This is an interesting pose. I like it. What I love about this pose, and once again, an exploration for a close-up at some point, would be the muscles of the left arm. The bicep, coracobrachialis, tricep, brachialis, they're just all working beautifully together here, and it's a really fine example of these muscles together. And we will do these close-ups eventually of all these things. But yeah, let's do the full figure. I'm just going to reset the clock. There we go. I think we're probably looking at around 20 minutes for this one, but let's see how we do. Let's find the axis of the shoulders. One thing that's tricky about this pose is I think the upper torso is giving us an awful lot of dynamics. The legs, not so much. So the legs can potentially be a bit more of a challenge. Okay, manubrium, clavicle, head of the humerus. Look at the way the sternocleidomastoid very clearly is, without doubt, the most important muscle coming off this manubrium and extending our center line. Once again, you know, that same discussion for the aces. Why is the manubrium so important? We'll look at the sternocleidomastoid and you tell me that that's not an important junction. Regardless of the fact it's the center line of the body and it's, for all intents and purposes, the top of the rib cage, at least for our purposes. Cool. Yeah, that would be unfortunate, really. There would be a lot of us succumbing to accidents if the sternocleido or the jugular. Although the jugular is pretty exposed, in fairness. But yeah. Okay, so now the oblique is sitting in here. Our rib cage. Pectoral, and then we can just get a hint of the latissimus sitting in there. Pectoral kind of takes over in this region. Brachialis. You can see the bulk of the straps, the gracilis and the sartorius kind of attached at the side of the knee here, right? Then you can see a very faint line of the sartorius going up this way. Yeah, call in sick, Slow. Always go to work tomorrow. Don't take my advice. That's terrible advice. Do what you need to do. Yeah, real tricky kind of leg setup here, right? Like, just to try and keep things looking interesting is not easy. Says many thanks, Richard, for the support. Many helpful comments. We can only practice 10,000 times. Yeah. Yeah. And make peace with the fact that there's always a bad drawing waiting to reveal itself. You know, we can do our 10,000 hours and trust me, that does not make you immune from stinkers. They happen. I'm exhibit A when it comes to that. But that's all part of the journey. Makes you appreciate the good ones even more. But I'm glad it helps. Draw his shorts in, it'll just help describe this whole midsection. hopefully stop me from getting demonetized. That's probably too late for that. I'm struggling with his torso length. Yeah, it's not easy, Margot. He's very long and very lean, and poses like this don't help, you know. But I hear you. It is a tricky one. Like, I know, easy for me to say, but that's why we really, when we're planning out in those initial stages, really want to try and get that stuff right, if at all possible, at that stage, because it's going to be so difficult to, well, it's not going to be possible to fix when you get too far into the drawing otherwise, as you might be finding out. But yeah, it's a tough one. He's not an easy subject. I'm curious, generally speaking, what's the overall general consensus of whether you prefer or find men easier to draw than women, or women easier to draw than men? Curious what people think. Now, not this pose withstanding, because I think some people find the anatomy of, you know, the muscular anatomy that's sometimes clearer on a male, to be visually clearer and easier to draw. Or are they, generally speaking, the simpler or softer curves easier to handle? Curious what people think. David says, women easier to draw for me. Also depends how muscular. Man easier for me, says Mila. Interesting. Definitely men because of the muscles. Hard to soften in a woman. Interesting. Well, Geoff, we do, as you might very well know, we do a lot of females on the stream. Probably quite a few more than men, if truth be told. Largely because there's a lot more female reference out there. But hopefully that when next time we're drawing women, we can talk about how we can translate some of that anatomical knowledge and translate it into the female form. Does that make sense? I find bony models harder to draw. Yeah, interesting, David. I get your point. I don't disagree with why you would think that. Yeah, I find men more difficult to draw than women because I don't want to draw them. The anatomy of men is sometimes easier though. Yeah, depends on their structure and the pose. Fair point, Margie. Yeah, I agree, Margot. Women, because I've drawn so many more of them. That's a very good point, Tina, actually. Yeah, I know that actually is a extremely good point. It's what we get familiar with. I would have to say, look, I think there's a place for drawing both, right? And I think that, yeah, they almost kind of serve different functions in our drawing, if that makes sense. Okay, we're at 18 minutes, so I'm going to spend let's just get in some large ideas with light and tone, but like, as I said, I do want to move on to the next pose. Or, actually, we're going to spend a few more minutes on this, and then we have to make a decision, and it will, as usual on the stream, it will be somewhat of a democratic choice between the last pose or the second to last pose. So if you want to start chiming in on which you would rather do, so it would be either pose 4 or pose 5 for the last pose. Majority rules. Chris says probably women, more curves, yeah. Also, I grew up drawing clothed models only, so when I started drawing nude models, definitely felt different. Yeah. Yeah. I think in some ways trying to learn to draw the figure clothed, I think, is really putting yourself at a disadvantage. All right, I think I'm going to leave this one here. Seems like as good a place as any. Geoff, gotta go. Thanks so much. See you next time, then. Take care. Okay, let's call it there. We haven't discussed pose 4 or pose 5. You guys need to give me your feelings, or we'll just do the next one, which is substantially harder than pose number 5. So you might want to General's charcoal pencils are, if you think they're hard to get in North America, you should try getting them over here, David. Impossible. I get all of my Generals shipped from the States. Although, yeah, let's not get on the General's charcoal conversation, because things just will get ugly. All right. Both looks hard, says Mila. Yeah, both do look hard. Pick your poison. Pose 5, says Petra. Petra's going for the slightly easier option. Order online, much easier. Yeah, that's true. First stick peddler looks easiest. Pose 5. We're at the end of the stream. Less bandwidth available. I vote that one. 5. All right, 5 it is. Let's do 5. 5 it is. But they are both tricky. You know, the only problem with this pose is the legs feel incredibly similar to what we've literally just drawn. You know what? I know the upper torso is quite different, but in the spirit of keeping things mixed, I'm actually going to override. Although not that there's been that many votes. I'm going to say pose 4. All right. It's different. It's more different. Let's do pose number 4, the one where he's hunched over, holding the stick. Okay. It's the same pose. Yeah, it's a little too similar, especially from the waist down. Poses 3 and 5 are almost identical. And I think in the interest of keeping it some variety, let's go with number 4. All right. Not going to be easy. My feelings about pose 4 match pose 4. Come on. We've got 12 minutes. Right? Give or take. Let's see. Depending on how it goes, that might be 10 minutes. It could be 15. But we'll go till the top of the hour. So, you know, the pain will be only so long. Okay, so rib cage is to about here. Arm going up this way, elbow sitting about here, coming up to our shoulder. Like, great pose, really. Some great shape language. Margie, you are correct in as much as for pose number 4, there were 2 versions of that as there are for pose number 2. So you're on image number 6. You're correct. But it's pose number 4. That makes sense. Wow, this at the way that pectoral's pulling down this way. Manubrium's all the way down here. This is from a section in the reference pack called Zombies, which, or something like that, the undead, which you can see why. This pectoral is coming down this way. The radialis coming down. The knee is here. The wrist is here. And then yeah, really interesting design language challenges. All right, enough of that. This arm is a bit forward. Okay. And we can actually see very faintly arch of the rib cage kind of sitting in here. Center line. I love the loose skin. Sitting around his stomach. Great shapes. So yeah, on Thursday's stream we will do what essentially I planned on doing for the Monday stream, which is we're going to focus in on a piece of anatomy and do some studies related to that. I haven't 100% decided on what that will be, but I have a pretty good idea. All right, let's do a bit of quick tie down here. Time is ticking. Direction change. That's too long. It's about there. And here we can see just the back of the it's all so distorted. Back of the scapula is sitting in here and coming into the back there. Yeah, I hope I can make sense of this when it's all said and done. Just wacky. Patrick says, draw Goku, please. I don't know what Goku is. Sorry. And also, we are drawing specific things. Yeah, this is a hot mess. Scapular movement makes it look like his rib cage is gigantic. Yeah, it does definitely give a weird illusion. Its whole pose is bizarre. Yeah, what can you say? It's just wacky. And my drawing certainly isn't helping. Okay. Oh. Okay, this just looks bizarre. Even the stick is bizarre. Nothing makes any sense. Margie, loving this pose. I'm glad to hear it, Margie. Poses like this that make me question my choices. No, look, it's a fun pose. There's a reason I picked it, but it's the kind of pose that honestly just doesn't do well under time constraints. Yeah, you know, it doesn't do well under the best of times, but especially when you're trying to, you know, work within the parameters of a shortish amount of time. It's just brutal. Just making it worse. Anyway, it is what it is. All right, how much more punishment am I prepared to take on this one? Hmm. I'm gonna call it there because this is it's enough. It's enough punishment. That was insane pose to end on. Bit of fun though, huh? Bit of fun. As they say, you're only as good as your last drawing. If that is the case, we're in trouble, folks. That much I do know. But it's over. There were some interesting poses in there. There was certainly some interesting design language and some interesting challenges. So all in all, glad we did the session. Be nice to finish on a high note. These things happen. But there you go. We take the good with the bad. Thursday, as I said, we'll pick some anatomy to do a deep dive on, and some poses that hopefully help us explore said anatomy. But guys, thanks for joining me on this, well, at least what is here, a fairly dreary Monday. Although you're starting to already get slight hints of spring, which is lovely. Had a frolickingly good time with little Penny today out in the marshy fields, which are all flooded, and she bounded around for nearly an hour just like an absolute madman. So that was delightful, and you just start to get a very slight tinge of spring is around the corner, which is a wonderful feeling. Maybe I'll post some of those photos or videos on Discord. Guys, I will see you all hopefully on Thursday. I do hope that you can join me. In the meantime, members, please go post some work on the Discord, etc. As I said, I meant to do it. Hopefully I'll have it up by Thursday, but I'm going to do an anatomy channel on the Discord, or an anatomy sub, we'll call it, on the Discord channel, as well as a pets sub where we can all post our pets, which I think would be a bit of fun. So that's all coming very, very shortly, hopefully, as I said, by Thursday. In the meantime, yeah, if you hit the like button on your way out the door, that would be awesome if you feel so inclined, and I will see you all on Thursday. In the meantime, look after yourselves. I'll see you then. Cheers. Bye.